people with depression and high amounts of negative stress are 3 times more likely to develop cardiovascular disease and hypertension. The mechanisms that cause hypertension are not currently understood. Therefore, it is necessary to advance public health efforts through research that examines the mechanisms that can cause cardiovascular disease in people with depression. One of those mechanisms that I'm currently examining with my current research project is looking at beat-to-beat blood pressure variability and heart rate variability in young adults with major depressive disorder. And recent data actually suggests that increased resting beat-to-beat blood pressure variability might be a better diagnostic tool, especially for harmful cardiovascular disease outcomes compared to using an ambulatory method or a resting blood pressure cuff alone. And now you might be asking, okay, well, what exactly is beat-to-beat blood pressure variability? Like, let's take a step back. And so beat-to-beat blood pressure variability, you can imagine it almost like this. We're looking really specifically not at the absolute value, but rather the deviations from the mean. So we're saying, okay, how high and how low are these lows when it comes to your blood pressure? So like, are we seeing these big swings in blood pressure? And if you have these really, really big swings, essentially your body is not going to be able to handle that in the long run. And so while there is some evidence for abnormalities in blood pressure regulation in adults with depression, no studies have actually examined the potential alterations in beat-to-beat blood pressure variability in adults with MDD, because with this approach, we're not looking for the symptoms that are already being exhibited, but rather we're taking a step back and we're actually looking at the bigger picture. And we're saying, hey, like, okay, well, we don't see the symptoms showing themselves just yet, but let's go ahead and see if this precursor is actually occurring that will cause the cardiovascular disease, aka the hypertension down the road. And so in this study, we actually tested the primary hypothesis that young adults with MDD who were unmedicated would exhibit the augmented beat-to-beat blood pressure variability compared to their healthy, non-depressed adult counterparts, and along with heart rate variability. And so given the predictive value of heart rate variability for cardiovascular disease health, or for cardiovascular health, coupled with meta-analytical findings demonstrating reduced heart rate variability in unmedicated adults with MDD, we also decided to test the secondary hypothesis that heart rate variability would be blunted in young unmedicated adults with major depressive disorder, especially compared to their healthy counterparts. In order to answer our hypothesis, we went ahead and sorted our participants into healthy and depressed groups. In order to actually sort them, we had all participants undergo a neuropsychiatric interview in order to determine the presence or absence of major depressive disorder. And essentially in this interview, we went ahead and made sure that all of the adults actually had depression and were not so depressed that they could not be included, or they weren't depressed enough to not be included. And along with that, we also made sure that all the healthy adults did not have any history of depression or any other major psychiatric illness. All of the participants also underwent a medical screening to confirm the absence of any evidence or history of overt cardiovascular disease. In table 1, you can see the subject characteristics for all of the participants. And for the actual experiment itself, we went ahead and collected all of the data using a little finger cuff on the finger in order to actually calculate the change in blood volume between every single heartbeat for blood pressure variability. And we also used a single lead ECG in order to actually collect the heart rate variability during 10 to 20 minutes of supine rest. So they were just laying down on the table. And along with that, we went ahead and had the resting blood pressure calculated just as an average of the blood pressure cuff around their arm, along with the finger cuff around their finger. All of the RR intervals were also calculated using lab chart in order to actually calculate the heart rate variability in the time domain. So as we can see with mean arterial pressure, cardiac output, and TPR, which are all measures of blood pressure health, there is no difference with a visual analysis along with a numerical analysis. As even with our visual analysis, to go ahead and see really how is the distribution of the blood pressure compared to the mean, there is no real difference between healthy and depressed adults. And in the same way with heart rate variability, the SDRR and the RMSSD are both the same, and there is no difference in either index of heart rate variability between both groups. And so contrary to our hypothesis, beat-to-beat blood pressure variability, as well as beat-to-beat cardiac output and TPR variability appear to be preserved in young unmedicated adults with MDD. Somewhat surprisingly, based on the existing literature, we also did not detect a difference in the time domain of heart rate variability. We speculate that alterations in the regulation of blood pressure and heart rate in adults with depression may only manifest later in the disease or aging trajectory.